Hi, and welcome to part 2 of the assessment workshop. If you're watching this video, then you've already watched part 1. Hopefully, I've had the chance to meet with you through video and answer your questions. And now we're on to part 2. So this video is going to be a little shorter. This is just 30 minutes. And then the goal is for you to spend a little bit more time with creating a unit outline for a chosen standard. And then we'll meet again after this video and I can discuss with you your science curriculum that you're planning to use for your classroom or already using, and ways to adjust maybe a little bit the presentation of that curriculum so that students are prepared for the new assessments. So if you have any questions, just like last time, please email me or reach out. And this is this screen that you'll see for part 2. I don't have the links in here yet, but as soon as I'm finished with this video, I'll put them in here. So we're going to jump right in just because this is part 2 and you've already had all of the introductory content. So I do want to say that if you have not had a workshop about phenomena and 3D learning, that's something that you definitely want to try to find or reach out to me for, and I can provide that for you. In order to really plan a unit or to assess the content that you're currently teaching, it would be really helpful to kind of have a basis in 3D learning and phenomena. So with that said, I'm going to open up this unit plan resource. We're going to start with this box down here. So this unit plan template is something I'm providing. I want to talk first about your task kind of at the end of this workshop, and then I'm going to give you some tools and resources to help you complete it. So this is a template I put together just to give you an idea of what I'm wanting you to do for the unit plan. Again, I want this to be productive for you, and I want it to be time well spent, not just busy work for you. So this is just an idea. It is not at all what you have to turn into me or what you need to use, but this is just kind of the basics of where you could start if you like having things already mapped out for you. So this template is based on Mystery Science just because that's what a lot of the teachers I've worked with are using. But the goal, I left the Mystery Science piece on here just because so you could see how I have it outlined. But if you are using something different, then you would erase this box right here and you'd put in the content for your curriculum. So this is based on 3rd grade standards, and I have 4 separate charts here for the 4 different chunks of content that are taught at that grade level. And obviously, if you're doing a unit plan, if you're a new teacher, or if you turn unit plans into your district, it's going to be much more detailed than this. The goal for you after this workshop is to kind of look at your curriculum through the lens of assessment, and then to look just at an overview, kind of an outline format of the unit. So it's not all the details that I'm wanting you to delve into right now as far as what the worksheets would actually look like or what the all the supplies you'd need. This is more of a basic outline. So, after 22 years of teaching, this is where I start with unit planning for my classroom. I kind of get an overview of what I want to teach, and I write down all the ideas I'm really excited about and all the hands-on that I really want to make sure I get done. And so I look at the big picture first, and then I kind of build out from that when I'm lesson planning. So that's the goal for this template here. If you would like to do things differently, feel free to do that and plan it the way that you would like. So this Mystery Science unit, the first one is Plant and Animal Secrets. And so with that theme in mind, you would kind of try to map out the start date and time needed. So is this something you're planning to teach in the fall, the winter, the spring? Because the season in which you teach it is really going to change the kinds of activities that you present to your students. And then it's really nice to look at realistic time needed. So I know that if you had 4 units, right, throughout the school year, you may say, okay, I have 40 weeks that I teach, so let's just say 10 weeks per unit. But that's really not the goal here. The goal is for you to write down the realistic amount of time that you have. So let's say your school year is 40 weeks, but you know that of that 40 weeks, you can only realistically spend 20 weeks on science. Then you would change this and put down 5 weeks. So the goal on this is to be as realistic as possible. It's not to put down the timeline that you think you're supposed to be teaching. I want you to put down realistically what you have time for. And then if you find that you have extra time, you can always add to that. But let's start with what you think you can actually do in the school year. So if it's 20 minutes a day, if it's 20 weeks, however you want to figure that out, I find it really helpful to start with a calendar in front of me and look at how much time I have and then give myself a realistic goal for each unit. Because a lot of times when I look at planning, I find all these awesome activities I want to do with students, but then I realize that I'm taking way too long on one content piece because I was super excited about it. And then I end up in a place where I have to rush my last topic of the school year. And so when you can look at it time realistically and then kind of block yourself in, that's where I like to start before I get excited about ideas. That's why I put start date and time first on this chart. The next thing I like to think about is exploratory stations, phenomena, or curriculum links. So if you're using if you already have like mystery science that you're using, you could put links to specific pieces of mystery science that you know you want to teach on this form. So you might want to look at your overall unit from your, whether it's a book that you have in hard copy or your online content, and try to pare it down to the realistic pieces and parts that you want to teach. So for mystery science, maybe you don't have time for all of the hands-on, but you know there's one or two in there that are really exciting to you and you know your students will love. So maybe you put in the links just to those. So I feel like it's beneficial to take the time to kind of look at the content and then pull out a few pieces that you think you actually have time for, if you know you don't have time for all of it. And then for exploratory stations and phenomena, exploratory stations is something I talk about when I do my PD on 3D learning and phenomena. And exploratory stations is how I like to start my units for science. I kind of like to present phenomena, many different small phenomena to my students rather than an overarching theme. Just middle school, that tends to be what works better for me. So I may give them a few different hands-on stations that give them experience with the content I'm teaching. For example, we just did a unit on energy and types of energy. So I set up lots of different stations where students had to think about energy going from one place to another. So there was a hot chocolate station, there was a station with a lava lamp, there was another station with a fan, there was one with a ramp and matchbox cars. So that's all phenomena where you're taking something students are familiar with, but they may not realize how it works, and you're asking them to think more or to delve deeper into the science behind it. So the students had to look at the kinds of energy that were being used or produced in all of those different stations. And so that was before I taught any content. I just set up the stations. I asked them to draw pictures and really think about each of those activities. And obviously I gave them more information than what I'm giving you, but I just wanted to give you a general idea. So exploratory stations is something I use a lot. If you want more information on that, please reach out to me. But I really feel like those hands-on stations at the beginning of a unit are really helpful for students to, it's kind of helpful to drive student thinking in the direction you want it to go. And that's one of the biggest changes I've made in my teaching in the last 5 years. And that's the thing that's made the biggest difference. So because this workshop is focused on assessment, I don't really have time to talk more about that, but it's the one thing I'm most passionate about. And I love teaching and talking about exploratory stations and hands-on from that approach. So please reach out to me if you'd like more information. So I would put all of that information in this box, and then moving down, if you have time and if it's realistic, I realize in the time of COVID, it's not as realistic, but there's a lot of people who have done Google Meets with my classes. Last week, my class just met with a blacksmith from New York who was able to give my students lots of great information. He joined the Google Meet and he had this whole setup behind him in his shop with like Viking shields that were super colorful. And then he had this whole torch he had blacksmithed or forged. And he's just a cool guy. You know, he shows up in this big hat and he's got a huge beard. He's like a celebrity now to my students. They absolutely were like, Steve. So, you know, even though we couldn't go anywhere, having that experience was really valuable for my students. It was 20 minutes on a Friday, and it was awesome for them to meet with a blacksmith and be able to kind of talk with him. So virtual field trips like that, if it's just guest speakers, anyone from your community, even if it's somebody that all of your kids know, but you've never really talked to them about their craft or their career, having them visit class when it's related to your content is super cool. Cornell Cooperative Extension usually has great links to people in your community that would be able to help out with science. Okay, and then next I would put in your assessment link. So whether it's a link to a document where you have questions, a website you want to use, that's where I would put that information. And then last would be the kit supplies needed. So whether if you're using a specific kit that you already have, I would list that here. Or if you have some exploratory stations that you want to build kits for, then you could add those supplies in here. I just like to, at the beginning of a unit or school year, kind of write down the supplies that I need to make sure that I'm ready to go and not kind of running around last minute. I'm not sure that this will be super helpful for you, this whole template, but honestly, taking the time to do this at the beginning of the year really is one way that I tackle how overwhelming hands-on stuff can be. If I know at the beginning of the year that my classroom is kind of stocked with the supplies, then it's not that like last week before Christmas, I'm like, oh, I really want to do some fun hands-on, but like I don't have time to run to the grocery store or Walmart or wherever after school. So I try to, at the beginning of the year, sit down and take the time to think out all of my supplies and then just make sure my classroom is kind of stocked with the basics. That's kind of a huge help. I'm sure a lot of you know that, and I'm just telling you something that you already do. But if you're a new teacher and hadn't thought of that, hopefully that idea might help. So I would do that for the unit. And then, at the beginning there, I would try to like do this overview for all my units. Like that's the goal. Sometimes it's like 2 weeks before I teach the unit that I actually do this chart for my classroom, but we do what we can. So at the end of this video, the goal would be for you to do just one of these for your class. So I'm guessing that if you're already, mid-teaching year, you already have some of this done. So maybe you want to sit down and kind of think about a unit you've already taught and plan ahead for next year. Or maybe you want to do this template build with this template for a unit that you're teaching in the spring. It really doesn't matter. I just am hoping that you'll kind of take a big look at one unit that you're teaching and try to add in these pieces and parts to think about it from a 3D and phenomena focused view. Because when you're preparing students for these new assessments, it's really important that you are using those teaching methods and using that kind of lens to look at your overall unit plan to make sure students are prepared for those assessments. So now I'm going to jump in and try to link this a little bit more to assessments, but I just wanted to kind of give you an overview of the template that you'd be using at the end of the video so that you can think about it as I'm talking about these other pieces and parts. Okay. So one thing I have for you is this resources chart, and keep in mind that I teach in Northern New York, and so a lot of these resources are, especially when you're looking at field trip or guest speaker connections, these are all field trips that are more in my region. But if you are a teacher that takes a lot of field trips and if you have the time to send me a list of some field trips or experiences in your region, I would love to add them to my resources chart here, and then it would be available for all the teachers in your area. Every time I offer a workshop, teachers are really awesome about sharing with me, and I've really been able to build out this resource chart so that everyone that I share it with has lots of information. So the top is school-wide initiatives, and we're going to talk about those in just a second. But then next I have some field trips or guest speakers. So even if these are not your region, there are a lot of people at each of these locations that would be willing to do a Google Meet with you. So if you click on any of these, if you want more information, you reach out to me and I'll help you. But these are all great resources for field trips. Next, I have one of my biggest pet peeves as a teacher in 2021 is trying to find information online. I feel like I can get lost for hours trying to find information online because it's all these dead end websites and all of these links that really go nowhere, or I get really excited about something and then find out I have to pay $50 to use the website. So that gets frustrating. So I've spent a lot of time and I've worked with lots of teachers in the last 5 years, and I've come up with this list of really awesome resources for unit plans. So all of these links are great, and they're websites that are easy to use, and there's lots of really valuable information. So check those out if you have time. And so it's like, even down here last year when we were virtual, I did a lot of research to find some great videos that I could use while teaching virtually. And so I subscribed to a whole bunch of YouTube channels and then posted some of those links here that were the best sites that I found. So if you're looking for videos, if you happen to be virtual or just want that piece, there's a lot here for that. Here's some professional development opportunities in science. I know a lot of the elementary teachers I worked with weren't super comfortable with science and were asking me for for some PD options to kind of get more experience. And there are so many workshops and conferences available that you may not be aware of, because usually a lot of those advertisements go out to secondary science teachers. And so as an elementary teacher, you may not be aware of them. So some of those are here for you. STANES, NSTA, those are some larger science conferences that you can go to. I've been to many of them. It's great. It's a great way to travel. I've been to New Orleans, Chicago, and I'm really lucky. My district helps pay for some of the conference fees and even some of the travel. So if you have that deal within your district, take advantage of it and go if you can. As a mom, it's great to kind of get away for a few days and do my own thing. And the people at these conferences are awesome. And there's a lot of great workshops to kind of really get you excited about science. This last one on here is a conference it's geared toward PE teachers, but I have to tell you, I went a few years ago because I run a science camp and I wanted some activities for summer. But every workshop I went to, I sat there and was like, oh my gosh, this is such a cool activity. I could infuse science really easily and make up some fun games. So I felt really out of place at the conference because it was full of PE teachers and I just didn't feel like I fit in there. But it was an amazing experience and one of the most fun conferences I've ever went to. Every banquet room was just cleared out, empty, and I seriously spent 2 days just playing games and doing yoga and playing with hula hoops. It was so much fun, and I really did get a lot out of it. So I highly recommend that if you would like to explore that more. And then down here, I have the assessment resources. So every resource on my slideshow is also on this one form. So this is something that you can share out and share with other teachers, and it's got a lot of great information on it. So the school-wide initiatives, those are back here on this other chart. I'm going to kind of go in order here. So from that resource chart, that's all grade levels really, K through 12. And so I've started the work, and I have really no time either, just like the rest of you. So it's a slow process, but my goal is to create a resource chart for each grade level specific to each grade level, so that when you click on a link, it takes you right to the kindergarten page or right to the first grade page. So I have the kindergarten done. So if you're a kindergarten teacher, yay. If you're not, I'm sorry. I'm going to be working on building out more of these. It's just my life's crazy too. So I haven't gotten to that yet, but it's the same links from the other page, except that some of them are new compared to the other resource page specifically for kindergarten. So when you click, it takes you directly to the kindergarten links and information that you need. I keep clicking around on this here. I'm trying to hurry. I know we only have 30 minutes for this video, so I want to give you as much information as I can. Okay. The next thing that I want to talk to you about is just some school-wide initiatives. So let me just summarize kind of what I've said. So when you're creating curriculum to meet the kind of new benchmarks for these new assessments, last video, I told you some of the main things you need to focus on as far as making sure your practice assessments are preparing students for the new types of questions they're going to see on the new test. When you're looking at your unit plans, you want to make sure that you're looking at the 3D lesson format, meaning teach from each of those columns or colored areas on the standards list. Make sure that you're giving students hands-on experiences. I can't stress that enough. I know that's very, very difficult, but I have some great ideas to be able to fit those in, even if you're limited on time. So if that's something that you struggle with, let me know. And when we meet individually, I can definitely go over that with you. So 3D learning, hands-on as much as possible, exploratory stations to allow students to really ask questions and wonder. That's one of the biggest things I struggle with as a teacher is you want to just give kids the answer. You want to be able to answer their questions. If kids are asking why or how does this happen, it's really difficult as a teacher to say, I don't know, let's figure it out. Not that you don't know, but you want the student to think through it and kind of struggle and be in that space of confusion. I tell my students all the time, if you're confused and frustrated, that's good because it means you're learning. If you know all the answers and understand everything, then I'm not teaching you anything new. So I feel like giving students that opportunity to really struggle, and I know this sounds horrible, but be frustrated is so important because that frustration and confusion will really encourage them to push, like kind of be outside their comfort zone from an educational standpoint and make them really wonder and try to figure things out on their own. Because this new assessment, there's really no way to prepare a student for every question they're going to get on these new assessments. They're going to be given data sets and pictures and images that they've never seen before. And so they really need to not panic when they don't know the answer immediately. They need that skill of being able to look at something and have that drive, I guess, to figure it out. So one way I deal with that in my classroom is to give students these exploratory stations or these hands-on opportunities where they have to figure something out and aren't told the answer. And a lot of times when I start my units with these, I don't tell them the answer right away. They have to just kind of wonder and guess and not know. But then it's really cool because when I do my direct teaching, a lot of times students will be, and this was like one of those moments as a teacher when I'm like, oh my gosh, it really works. Like this is awesome. So, I'll be doing direct teach or, however I'm choosing to do that for this unit. And I'll be presenting information and the kids will say, oh yeah, it's just like the lava lamp, or it's just like in s'mores, or, they'll make those connections back to the exploratory stations. And then they'll be able to answer their own questions, which it's a really cool moment to see that happen in your students, for them to make those their own connections. So that's one of the goals. As far as making sure they're prepared for these new assessments. And then lastly, as far as making sure that when you look at your curriculum, you're preparing students for the assessments, is to make sure that you're doing that as a whole building, so that this information is scaffolded all the way up through. Because if you all work together as a community, as a group, and help each other, those students are going to do much better on that 5th grade exam. And so that's where school-wide initiatives come in. Pre-K all the way up through 5th grade, all the way up through 12th grade, students really need to, you start developing patterns of thinking and you all work together to help students, achieve those moments of confusion and frustration and then find clarity on their own. If that's kind of how you teach, then students are going to be much more successful when they get to those benchmarks at 5th, 8th, and Regents exams. So some school-wide initiatives that I think are more focused on the elementary level. The first one is Accountable Talk, and I have a link here. And these are all terms that elementary teachers told me. Oh no, I'm not, the link to that's not working. I will fix that before I send this out to you. So I'll just explain to you what it is. I do have this on the resources chart as well, so maybe that link is working instead. So one of the teachers that I work with, she's a reading teacher, and she attended my workshop in the summer. And what she did for me was take some vocabulary words that are used frequently in science, and she was able to put those vocabulary words on little charts for me. And in a lot of schools, teachers will take one chart per quarter or whatever it is and kind of tape it to the kid's desk. And those are the concepts or the pieces or the vocabulary that they work on for that quarter. So they're really focused on kind of the scientific method, words like hypothesis or to compare and to contrast, things like that. And I'm not going to be able to right now kind of find this on here, I don't think. Let's see. Oh, right here. Posters. Okay, sorry. I will fix that link and then I will make sure it's working for when I share this with you. But they're really cute posters that are already done for you. So it's just, 8.5 by 11 page, but it could be shrunk down to be put on a student desk or up made into a poster in the classroom. And it's just some vocabulary that really, if you started it at pre-K or kindergarten and moved all the way up through and made it part of regular vocabulary, would really help with those science assessments at 5th, 8th, and Regents exam level. Next is visual thinking strategies. So this is also called VTS. And again, this is an elementary teacher shared this with me. This is not a link to what VTS is. You can Google that and find lots of information. But like I said before, I'm visual. I need things explained to me. And this is how you would actually do it in the classroom. So you can read paragraphs about VTS and the kind of research behind it. But this is just some simple examples I want to go over with you about how I use VTS in my classroom. So the whole idea is that you present students with diagrams first and ask them to develop meaning from them before you teach any content. So I chose a food web for this because I think everyone pretty has experiences with food webs, and it's something that's taught through all the different grade levels. And so this food web is one that I would give my students. And before I started all of this PD with the new standards, I would teach a food web by first teaching students what an herbivore is, what a carnivore is, what a producer is. And then we would learn that vocabulary. And then I would show them a food chain. And we would learn about food chains and how to draw them. And then eventually we would get to food webs, and these would all be labeled. And students would have to answer questions based on the food web. Now, when I teach about ecology, I don't start with any of the vocabulary. Like day one of the unit, before I've taught anything about producers, consumers, any of that, I give them this food web and I ask students to tell me about the picture. And so, tell me any facts you can about this picture. Let's try to figure this out. Tell me what it's showing. And so students, I get crazy answers. Don't get me wrong. Kids come up with stuff that's totally not related at all. Or they'll just put like the deer is brown and the tree is green. And like, that's fine. That's absolutely good. But while they're doing that, sometimes I'll walk around and I'll ask them to think a little deeper. So if a kid says the tree is green, I'll be like, now, why are all trees green? Or, can you tell me anything more about a tree? Why are there arrows going from the tree to the giraffe? And so, whatever level the student is at, if they're telling me it's green, or if there's kids that already know it's producer, I'll ask them, okay, can you define producer? Can you give me another example of a producer? So one benefit of this is to understand students' background knowledge. So really quickly, I get a picture of where students are at the beginning of this unit. So without giving them any kind of pre-test, I can kind of figure out where students are starting. And so that helps me understand where to start teaching, at what level. And then it also helps me know which students I need to challenge and which ones I might need to spend a little time giving background information to. So the cool thing about this, I did not think it would work, but this is one of the things that's worked really well in my classroom is kids are curious and they really want to know about this picture. They love the challenge of trying to figure it out. And so a lot of times when I just direct teach this from the beginning in the way I explained first, students would understand the content, but it was just a memorization and spit it out. When I ask them to figure this out, they're really trying to find the connections between each of these animals. They're really paying attention to the direction of the arrow and what it means. And one of my biggest struggles when I first started teaching food webs, old way, is that students would always reverse the arrows. But since using VTS and presenting this diagram first and asking them to figure it out, that happens less frequently because students have paid attention to that from the beginning when they were trying to figure out the food web. So that method works really well. And then this diagram is just another example. I would definitely take off this temperature part on the bottom. I would just give the maps and ask students to make some observations about what this map means, what it's showing. So you can do this with anything. If you're teaching or science, erosion, weathering, deposition, you can show them a series of pictures and ask them to figure out what happened and why, there are different rock forms or why there's more sand in one location than another. So there's lots of different ways that you can use the strategy with lots of different content. If you ever want ideas, let me know. I love building out content and building out stations and things like that. It's like one of my most fun things. One of the things I enjoy most about teaching. So the last thing here is phenomena. And if you have not had a workshop on phenomena specifically, this is a slideshow I use in my workshop where I teach about 3D learning and phenomena. So I just wanted to put this link in here because it does have the definition and then some examples. You may not understand all of the slideshow because when I use this, I'm using it as a presentation tool. So this isn't really perfect like on its own if you're just looking at it. But if you look through this, it can give you some ideas about what is phenomena, because I keep saying that word to you. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, click on that, read through it. It'll give you a general idea. But again, like I said, if you want more information, let me know and I can offer a PD session on that as well. Okay, we're out of time. You heard my buzzer go off. So I just want to go over one more thing and then kind of review with you before I end the video. So when I work with teachers and I have a full day or two on this assessment workshop, teachers build out their units or do the activity you're going to do on your own. Teachers do this with me. And so I created this Padlet for teachers to use, and they kind of started putting down some of their ideas so that they could share it with other workshop participants. So these were just exploratory station brainstorm ideas based on some different mystery science curriculum content. Over here, we have assessment questions that teachers started to rewrite and kind of reword the mystery science questions to be better matched with the new standards. And then these are some resources. I love this one because one of the teachers that was in the workshop put down all the book pairings for the mystery science units. But even if you're not teaching mystery science, the content's the same. So all of these books would work if you're teaching 5th grade, which a lot of you may already have this. But if you don't, this is a cool resource to have. So I have a link to that. If you want to add to it, feel free. If there's things that you'd like to share with other teachers, I haven't done a full day in-person workshop like this in a long time, so we haven't added to it recently, but it's there. And then this last, if you want to hang, so our BOCES region has a community page that a PD professional has set up in our area, and I am the I do a lot of the posts for the Science PLC in this community. So you just hit request to join. It's going to ask you some questions. You fill that in. And then the administrator of the site will look over your information and then let you into the community. And then you can join the Science PLC. And I post updates there. So any workshops I offer, sometimes some of them, depending on who's offering them, will be posted there. And then I also post updates from the state. So that's a good site to kind of join. And there's tons of information. So it's not just science, it's every content area. The administrator for the site posts lots of really little quick PD things, like 15 minutes or so. So it's kind of a cool site to explore if you're interested. Okay, I always feel like I'm talking way too much. Hopefully what I've given you for information is helpful though. So just an overview, after you watch this video, what I'd like you to do is use the resources I provided or any that you have on your own to complete one box from this unit plan template. So choose one unit from your school year and kind of do an overview or a unit outline and try to build in some exploratory stations or phenomena, look into some possibilities for field trips or virtual ones, and then try to find some links for assessments that you can use for that unit. So if you feel like this task is not going to be beneficial to you, please reach out to me and we can chat about some other tasks that might work better for you to help you accomplish the goals that you have. So reach out to me or Tammy with any questions, and I would be happy to help you. So have a great day, and I hope your school year is going really well. I hope you're all staying in person. Bye.